so that I can mention my good friend Dr. Greg Gerdeman, and I attribute this slide to him. This slide actually comes out of the only cannabis museum in the entire country. You know where it is? Athens, Ohio. One of the greatest small party towns. But anyway, there's a cannabis museum when cannabis was taken out of the pharmacopoeia, literally in 38 or 40, whatever it was, but literally they destroyed everything, every bottle, everything, this, that, crushed it. So there are some things that still remain, and almost all of them are in this museum in Athens, Ohio. But I love this. This comes from the year 1902, and it's from York, Pennsylvania. One of the members of my tribe, I suspect, Dr. Berger, a Jewish guy perhaps, I suspect. Anyway, if you look, elixir of cannabis indica. But here's the important thing. Look at the sig. Use as directed. Now, the great thing about following Joe is that Joe gave a fantastic presentation of how it is that he helps patients, laid out a whole dosing protocol for them and this and that, and I love it. You're not going to hear that out of me. I have kind of an opposite approach of teaching my patients how to gain their own control. So my point is, I love what Joe does, but I think you're going to hear that my philosophy may be a little bit different, but every bit as useful. But the key thing, once again, look at the SIG, use as directed. The causes of prohibition, pretty well known. You know, it's kind of interesting if you look over at the first slide, or the first segment there. You know, heroin and all that, they were sold over the counter, literally, or in pharmacies. They sold hypodermic needle sets from Sears, actually, in the early 1900s. What people need to know, and it's interesting, Joe, because, of course, the 8-hour class discussed this. The 2-hour class never did. The origination of the entire prohibitionist issue came with the invention, literally, of the hypodermic needle itself. And of course, in non-doctor populations, people go, ooh, terrible thing, the needle. No, it's a fantastic thing, of course. As all of us doctors know, intravenous meds, IM meds, a different way to administer medications. But they quickly found out, and it was kind of the Bayer, big pharmaceutical company at the time, found this out. Only the opioids were water-based for distillation and infusion through the needle. The cannabinoids were oil-based. They didn't know what to do with them. The cannabinoids were being grown on every colonial farm, backyard, roadside. It is weed, after all, right? Whereas the poppy and the opium plant had to be imported. So there were money reasons that this happened. It's always been money reasons. It's continued to be money reasons. Little did we know that we'd be losing 126 people, that's my number, 126 people a day to opiate overdose and narcotic issues, okay, when these decisions were made back then. What a tragedy. Doctors actually struck against the government and the hospitals for a couple days, back in the late 30s or early 40s or whatever, and they lost. They had to go back to work. But doctors knew the problem. They worked literally, tirelessly for 20 or 30 years to try to prevent this prohibition, and it didn't happen. There's reasons too, and I'm going to go back to it. William Randolph Hearst, of course, he was the paper baron. The hemp, I must have hit it twice. Yeah, I hit it twice. The hemp people were assaulting the paper people. You could create paper out of a hemp field in about 60 days. That would take a pine forest 60 years at about 1/60th the price, blah, blah. So William Randolph Hearst had a lot to do with it. Henry Anslinger, of course. Prohibition is what he was doing until prohibition went away. Then he had a whole agency with nothing to do. So they figured out, hey, let's go after cannabis. And there's a lot of racial issues that have gone, that still go on today, to the extent of cannabis and the issues as they are. You could talk about your private prison populations and other such things, but that's a debate for another day. This is the propaganda that we all have seen. Reefer Madness, of course, the black side of swing. I love the terms Mexicans into wild beasts. This is the first gentleman ever prosecuted in the United States for illegal cultivation of cannabis. Does not look like a stoner to me. All right, let's get to what's going on in Florida, because I think everybody's interested in how it is that I do what I do and the success that I've had to the extent of getting patients qualified into the program here in Florida. How the program works, of course, they must have a debilitating condition. They must see a physician, of course. Patients ask us all the time, why can't my doctor do this? I said, well, your doctor just doesn't want to do this. Or his hospital system won't yet let him do this. Or his other two partners won't yet cannabis, or his attorney won't yet let him do this, right? But the point is, any physician in the state, as you know, can take the test, then you got to do this, that, whatever. There's the 370-day order set. How that came to be, we don't know. It's 210 total days. We know it's not half of 420. They're not that savvy or smart. Okay? And then they go to the dispensaries. It's amazing that many people around the state still think that Dr. Rosado and I are actually the ones dispensing cannabis from our office. And of course, everybody knows that's not the case. Very important, of course, is every 210 days, we have to see the patient for an in-person physical exam, not telehealth, not nurse practitioner. It's got to be the doctor himself. I'm not putting down my other ancillaries because I love them all. The state just doesn't allow them to do it yet. Who could participate? Very interesting. The snowbird issue is interesting here in Florida. You have to be in the state 31 consecutive days. How they decide that, nobody really knows. You have to have a bill or a checking account or something, but you know, it's not hard to get in. This is the meat of the issue, guys, and this has all been covered pretty well here. But let's go down to the bottom on the chronic pain. Right? First of all, terminal conditions, I love that one. If I'm dying, guys, I got PTSD. You know, I mean, come on. So it was interesting, the old law, of course, you know, you had to have 2 doctors say you were dying, and you had to be dying within the year. Indeed, God, what if they were wrong? Anyway, but chronic pain is interesting, and the asterisk is there for a reason. Yes, Senator Bradley, from day 1 of Senate session last year, has always had his definition of chronic pain must be coming from one of the other debilitating conditions. I've been told personally that it's been put in there by pain management lobby groups, and I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but they still want to manage chronic pain in this state. As you guys know, we cannot even advertise that cannabis is helpful for pain on any advertising that we do, right? So I'll be honest with you, in my clinic, while I address patients' chronic pain, I address it daily. I do not use it as a diagnosis, not once, not ever on any of my charts. I think it's a trap. I think it's put there to get medical cannabis clinicians in a certain circumstance that they don't want to be. And I'll get into how I do that in a moment. But chronic pain is a big, big problem in Florida. What the state didn't understand is this. And I have 3 types of patients. Let's get to it. So basically, I have a 5D teaching technique. The first of the D's is determining the patient's debilitating condition, right? Or in fact, in my clinic, we call it the don't worry D, because I know how to put the patients into the registry, right? The second D is what I call the determination of past cannabis use, or as Dr. Rosado alluded to it, I call the Doobie test. Now, why is it the Doobie test? It's the Doobie test because it allows me to determine from my patients very quickly in a manner of, as Mark was saying, we need honesty in the practice to know what our patients are doing coming in. So when they walk into my clinic, what they see is an open atmosphere. It's not a pain management type of atmosphere, walled off, gal, sit behind the window, what you can't do, this can't do, can't take that. No, we have a wonderfully open atmosphere, Amendment 2 posters, cannabis, so the patients know they feel very comfortable when they come in. And the reason for that is, once again, we have 33% of my patients that come in that are what we call D1s, D1s. They've never seen it, they've never used it, they're deathly afraid of it, they can't believe they're there. And that's 33%. I have people debate that with me, and I say, just come and sit with me for a day, you'll see it's true. So people say, how can they be coming in right now? And Joe and I were just talking about it before the session. Very excitingly so. You know how they're coming in right now? Their doctors are sending them in. Their doctors don't know what to do with these patients anymore. These are the patients that have wanted to be drug-free their entire lives. Yet, they're the ones that are carrying in the satchels of the narcotics. But they don't feel like they're drug abusers, of course, because their doctors have prescribed the medicines for them. So it's such an unusual head for the D1. They've been so fearful of the whole drug scene their entire life, but yet they're the ones that are really carrying the burden of the pills. And it's really, really fascinating. The second reason they come in is that their family and friends now tell them. This came up earlier in the session. That's what's going to be happening in Florida over the next couple of years, Dr. Kumar, is that the family and friends of patients are going to start to kind of get this out, and it's going to become normalized in society. That's why, and I know that's the other session over here, I'm friends with the Regulate guys. I know what they want. I know they want legal, adult, responsible use here in the state of Florida. That cannot happen without the appropriate medical program first. Can't. We need to show society that people can be out there every day utilizing medical cannabis for good, right? Until that happens, the entire argument falls on deaf ears of those that are really making the decisions. And I truly believe that. So while I am fully supportive of the efforts of those that want to take things in a certain direction, I know that what we do here is what has to happen first. Not one doubt in my mind. So, doobie twos, who are they? Doobie twos are patients that have had some past experience, right? But they've stopped, and you stop for a lot of reasons. You stop, job, kids, you marry somebody that doesn't do it. One of my greatest stories, of course, I have a lot of patients will come in and say, yeah, I stopped using it, I got married, my wife asked me to, but you know what, when I play golf on Sundays with my buddies, that's when I smoke my joint, right? His wife doesn't know, she doesn't care, it doesn't affect her life in any other way. So people stop to various degrees as doobie twos, right? Another doobie two that's interesting here in Florida, a lot of people will be users in their old home states, right? And you know, it's funny because those that don't know think you got to go down to the hood, so to speak, and find a guy, buy pot. No, people buy cannabis from their friends, from people that they've been buying it from for years. But when you move to Florida, right, you know what you don't have? Your buddy ain't around no more. You know what you're not going to do? You don't go down to the hood to find another bag. You don't. You don't have that physical drive for it. But if you're addicted to heroin or opiates or whatever, you move to a new town, where are you going on night one? You're going to find it. So the use of cannabis, while it may be habituating to a certain extent and enjoyable for people, when they go into circumstances where they can't get it, they don't do stupid things to get it. Right? You don't rob, lie, cheat, steal, go down to the hood, find another guy. Now you may go to the Venice drum circle, kind of sniff things out a little bit, but nobody does stupid things is the point. And then there's D3 patients. Who are the D3s? D3 patients are current users of cannabis. The interesting thing about them is, you know who they usually are? They own the businesses. Nobody's testing them, right? They are successful in life, right? They've made a decision to cross over into black market cannabis use. But you know what? They've done their reading and their research, and they know that the government's not right about this one. So these are self-assured, successful people. They could be living on Casey Key, employing 500 people, okay? But you know what? If they have a joint in their hand at 7:30 in the evening, which is their choice, their buddy 2 doors down that doesn't like him can call the sheriff on him. So there's a measure of anxiety to that guy too. Anyway, I'm going to skip by all this because it's been gone over. I'm not the scientist. But anyway, there is a doobie 4, by the way. That would be Willie Nelson. He's 85. And he's been pretty well known to be a cannabis user for every day of his past 65 years. The guy still looks pretty good to me. I'm going to skip by all of it. And Snoop Dogg, too. Key and Lock. I don't have enough time. Okay. But I got to go back to it. There's a very important third D that we call in my clinic the duality of the plant, right? So in contrast to Joe and some of the other speakers that tend to kind of hammer out specific doses on their THC and their CBD, in my clinic what I teach is what I call the duality concept, right? So if I have my Doobie 1 grandma over here that's never used it in the past, I'm going to recommend for her a rich CBD product to start and a very small amount of the THC product to start, right? Because we need the THC to kick in the CBD, but we don't want grandma writing a love note to grandpa that died 10 years ago at 3:30 in the morning. I don't like those calls. So the point is we start low and we go slow, but it's that duality concept. So here's grandma with CBD and THC, and here's Vietnam vet guy who's done it every day for 50 years with THC up here and CBD down there. But it's interesting, because we have a phrase in my clinic, we call it the twain shall never be. You got to understand that a lot of people, and everybody who's doing this out there, you know this, patients are coming in on the CBD oil already, right? You can get it at the health food store, the vape shop. I had a lady the other day, hey, I got mine at the flea market. And I said, well, good luck with that, because who the heck knows what's in that stuff. But the point is, patients are coming on the CBDs already. They haven't tried the THC yet because they're afraid, right? But Vietnam vet guy, interesting also, he's been using a THC product for years. You'll ask him, hey, you know what the CBD components are? Of course, we all say CBDs, that's not fair. CBG, CBN, all of them. They won't even know what I'm talking about. So we'll do a little education. They'll come back 6 months later thanking me, as you said, Mark, for introducing them to the THC aspect of it. So there's education to be done on both sides. There's education to be done on those that have never used cannabis before. They deserve the respect of the profound education that you give them. And then our Doobie 3 patients, you know what? They deserve respect for the cannabis use that they come in doing already. So to me, my philosophy is to educate on both sides is what's important for me as a clinician. And we all know that physician in Greek or Latin means teacher, teacher. That's what we need to be doing. It's all about the teaching. The fourth D is the dispensaries themselves, right? And they're beautiful out there. There's two other D's that go with that dispensary D. And the first one is your desires from the dispensary, right? So after we do our teaching about the ratios, right, things of that nature, then the patient can go to the dispensary and describe their symptoms. Are you a tremor guy, pain guy, cancer guy, whatever your symptoms may be, and then the dispensaries assist the patients with their choice of meds. And we also give each and every patient that comes into my practice a diary, another D, right, so they can keep track of their symptoms. We always, of course, talk on the start low, go slow basis. But my ordering system, and I'm happy to tell everybody this, because everybody says, how do you put your orders into the registry? I put a basic order in for each and every patient that's the same order. I put in a 200 milligram a day order for THC and CBD, oral, and vape. The state only allows us the 2 routes. Now, everybody says, boy, 200 milligrams, that's a lot. I said, of course it's a lot. Do I expect any of my patients to do that? Of course not. But I want them to have the opportunity to go to the different dispensaries to try the different dispensary products. If you put too small of an order in, then quite frankly, the patients don't have the opportunity to go to the different dispensaries to try to find the right products that work for them. I know the state is concerned about diversion, but you're not going to have diversion of a cannabis product that's more expensive than it is on the street. Anybody that wants cannabis right now can easily go on the street and find a cheaper product that will get them high. And that's not what our patients are looking for. And we all know that. So it's very frustrating when I hear these things about dosing limits and things of that nature. It's really not pertinent to what we're doing out there. This is the most important part of my talk, and I know I'm near the end, so I'll wrap it up quick. And it's the 5th D. Now, when I have a doctor or a nurse in my practice, and I had a fascinating week a couple weeks ago. I had 3 retired clinicians in their 80s in my office in the same week with their wives, Joe. It was crazy. And I love when I have my retired clinicians. You'll never hear me say old and nurse together, because those are two, polar positives of a magnet. I'm teasing. But I love my retired healthcare professionals because I play a little game with them. And I say, well, we're at the 5th D. You know what the 5th D's got to be? It's got to be. How can it not be? It's got to be dose. No, dose. I love it. Every medicine in the world is dosed, right? You know what's not dosed in my practice ever doesn't come out? Cannabis. You know why? I got a Vietnam vet guy over there that uses it every day for 50 years, and I got grandma over there that's never had a whiff or a sniff. If I give them both 10 milligrams 3 times a day, he doesn't even know that I affected his life, and grandma's sitting on the floor eating chips and watching Jerry Springer. Seriously. So if you get into any type of dosing discussion, it's not pertinent with cannabis, because you have your patients coming in from all the various directions. I like to call it the 4 factors, right? You have each individual patient is going to react differently to cannabis, right? Each strain is going to react differently. I tell all my patients, hey, you're supposed to go to sleep with the indica, and you're supposed to be energized with the sativa. But you know what? I have a lot of patients who tell me the exact opposite. So I tell my patients this, and I use the line all day, every day. I never guarantee 100% of success. I'm not a snake oil salesman. That's not fair. But I do promise 100% of safety. So when you can promise 100% of safety, there's a phrase in my clinic that every patient hears. It's called safety plus control equals relief. So my philosophy is a little bit different than Joe's. I like to teach my patients how to control their cannabis. So for example, if you look at delivery methods, I always start with inhalation. Always. People say, why? How could that be? You have an 80-year-old lady, she's never had a drink in her life, she's never used any cannabis either, and how are you going to introduce her to an inhalation device? And I'll say, listen, I'll tell you why I do it. I want grandma's family to know within 5 minutes of what's going on with grandma, right? And if I start her on a Certera, for example, 12-5-1, very weak in its THC, or a 1-9, very strong in the THC, which I don't do, but good. Because you know what you tell the family? Hey, grandma's gonna do one little inhalation of any of the products. Then you're gonna put it down. And then you say, hey, 5 minutes later, grandma, what's up? If grandma says, hey, let's go dancing, then you got your answer. But here's the point. If 2 hours later, grandma's out on the dance floor and her pain starts to come back, you know what grandma can do? No, not in public. She could step into the ladies' room and she could do another inhalation or two, right? So we teach the microdosing method that allows patients to keep their minds where they want it to be and treat their symptoms. So when you go back to the Doobie 1, quote unquote, patient, as I say to my Doobie 1 patients, you're here for me to make you a functional Doobie 3, right? Not high, not impaired, but taking care of your symptoms and bettering your life, right? So to me, the key in the delivery methods is in offering your patients control. There's one thing that I know, and I'm going to end up on it. When you can give your patients control over their symptoms, that is the most unique thing about cannabis. Rather than carrying a satchel of pills in that's controlling them, they learn how to take control of their symptoms. What Joe sees in his practice is what I see in my practice. The one thing I never do is say to a patient, if you're coming to me, you can't take that. You know what a win for me is? A win for me is when my patients come in on a list of meds that high, and I can give them something that makes them feel just a little bit better, enhances their day. I'm a doctor. That's my job. I don't require anybody to take anything less. You know why? That would make me no better than the pain management guy who says, hey, if you're going to go see that pot guy over there, you're not getting my narcotics anymore.
Amen.
And I see it every day. Every day. So if I said to my patient, listen, if you're going to come to me, you've got to get off your other stuff, that would make me no better than him. And you know why I can do it that way? Because each and every patient wants that already. So why would I put that anxiety on them as well, right? They want it already. So to me, a win-win for me is when a patient can do what Joe's patients have done, okay? Which is taking less of their meds, right? It's not practical for a lot of patients to get off of their meds, all of them. But to me, if they can reduce their burden by half, that's a win-win. My goal is that nobody ever has to take more, right? And then there are the win-win-win miracles. And we love them when patients get off all of their medications, and we see it every day. So my message to you, and I'm going to end up with it, we're here as physicians. I'm here to advocate for my patients. I make an effort for each and every one of my patients to get them the availability of a safe, legal product that they know what they're going to get every single time with reliability, right? And I think that's our job, is to be doctors and to be courageous to be doctors. Because if we are, we can make a big difference right now, and we're seeing it every day. And I guarantee anybody that gets involved in this practice to the extent that we are, you're going to see the same enthusiasm that Mark had, that Joe had, that Dan Smith is back there. The guys that I know that are out there doing this right now are just very, very happy doctors. And that's a good thing.
One question. I understand the flexibility for the patients. Lovely. The 4 boxes for the government. You're putting 200 milligrams each box per day.
I do.
You're going to put 20 milligrams per 10 doses.
No, it's a blanket. What you have to remember is that it needs to be a recommendation, and it needs to be a recommendation by federal Schedule 1 designation. One of the bigger issues, and Joe, you're one of the ones that actually we're not going to go through with a lot of the things that the state was asking us to do.
But
correct?
To answer your question, because his question was more directed as to what numbers to put into the milligrams and the number of doses. So yeah, it would be 20 milligrams times 10. And then for the CBD, both for vaping and inhalation for the low THC, and the same thing for the high THC. Okay?
Sir?
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Cole. He literally is over the head, probably from here to there, my office in his office, which is really fun. So I applaud you all, and I appreciate all of your incredible efforts. I wanted to say something that is, to me, incredibly frustrating. I have a patient who has arachnoiditis. For those who aren't familiar, she had her second or third back surgery, and they put an infection inside of her spinal canal, causing horrible fibrosis, scarring, incontinence, bowel bladder, falling down, can't walk, horrible life-altering pain. I'm working with her with stem cell therapy and other things, and this was 3 days ago. We were telling her about the different alternatives, some of the type of treatments, and the CBD, simply CBD creams and oils. She said, oh, I can't do that. I said, why? You looked at the profile, it's completely clean, it's not going to cause any wacky, loopy, groggy, foggy. There's no interaction. She said, my sister died of an overdose. I can't do that. I said, wait a minute. You've got arachnoiditis. Look at the meds that you're taking home, the prescription narcotics. I want to get rid of those. That's the problem. This is part of the answer. And it was so frustrating because it's hard to get some people past that point where they don't understand the benefits. So the education part is the tough part, but the important part. And I applaud all of you for that because you're literally getting the word out that people need to know. This can change your life in a positive, effective, safe way to give them the life that they've wanted for many, many years and sometimes all of their life on many of the patients. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So on to the gentleman in the corner. When I was speaking, you had a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I won't get into that one now. It's about hypothyroidism and how nobody's treating it right. But
we'll talk later.
But one of the things I want to say, I was fortunate. I've been doing this just about a year now, and I got to spend time with Barry down at his clinic and see how he did things. And we're up to a little over 400 patients now, and this is the coolest thing I've ever done. The letters we get are incredible. They would make you cry all day long. But one of the other things that we have learned about with the state system, you talked about dosing, and we actually took it from Barry. Thank you, Barry. Though you didn't know that. We put in 200 milligrams times 1. And the reason is you go to certain dispensaries, if you don't have a high enough milligram count to start with, they won't fill the prescription. And also a lot of the dispensaries, if they will take the CBD milligrams and add it to the THC milligrams that you get, and they'll take it out of your bank account or debit account in THC. These are some of the subtleties, and these are the things that, talking to Barry and some of the folks that have been doing this for a while, the state hasn't made it easy, it changes all the time, but get with a good community of people who've been doing it, and any of us that have been doing it like this. I got the stories Barry's got. This is just cool.
Yeah, we're going to take one or two more. I know we're close to the end here, but we really need to find out. Dr. Kumar, any idea when those reports on the reduction in opiates, other medications people are using, or the other conditions may be coming out from your office?
So we think in the end of summer we'll have that data.
Will that include average age or anything else like that?
Yes,
as well?
it will have all demographics that the state collects.
Yes.
Do you use the same kind or class qualifying condition? And if so, have you been successful or has been the documentation?
I do. I'm glad you asked. I use the same kind of class every day, guys, and I'll tell you how. To me, if you read the law, it's great for physicians. You just have to know it. And I'm just a Jewish doctor. I'm not a Jewish doctor and lawyer. There's plenty of those too. But I got good advice. If you read the law, it says similar, likewise debilitating conditions of the same kind or class or as comparable. Now, what's comparable? An apple and an orange. Small, round fruit. You know what else is comparable? An orange and a basketball, right? They're both orange and round. And you know what? A banana and an apple are darn near fruit, right? So to me, how I do it, quite frankly, every single person that's on a narcotic every day wants off it. So they have an anxiety disorder overtaking their narcotic. Every single person that takes Ambien or Xanax or Ativan at night to sleep, they have a persistent insomnia. So those are two things that research-wise we can prove. So I use a lot of similar and likewise to PTSD all day, every day. The PTSD for that particular patient is the narcotic that they're on, the debilitating condition they have, the chronic pain they experience. I call it the collateral damage of their condition.
So you don't call it because you call it
Similar likewise to
What about
PTSD.
uploading the supported documents that?
We have a spreadsheet of articles that I hit a button and it generates them. The state's probably got 8 boxes of stuff for me in a closet somewhere. We do. We generate the articles on every patient, but I rely on the studies that have been done on persistent insomnia. I think those are the best studies that we have right now to give the state what they want.
Dr. Rosado, Dr. Gordon, you mentioned that a lot of people come in and they've already taken hemp-based CBD before they get to you. How does that affect your treatment plan, and do you find that beneficial or an issue, and what are your thoughts on that?
I don't take it into account in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what they're taking before they come in to see me. I don't know the reliability of the product. So to me, I just tell them that they cannot make any assumptions based upon the CBD use that they're using it. And I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I think it's very important. Somebody mentioned it earlier today. This is full spectrum plant medicine, guys. You know, CBDs, I'm never going to sit up here and knock any of the CBD companies. They're all out there very well intentioned. Some do a fantastic job at their sourcing and all that. Others, I'm not quite sure. But the point is, we're full spectrum cannabis physicians, and I think that's important.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. You know, the speakers will be up here for a little while, but thank you for coming out. Continue to stay involved. Continue to try and keep you guys updated as all this changes here. If it's interesting, feel free to stop by and all right, guys, we're gonna get our next session started here in just a minute. So if you guys can just take your seats and get it going. Thanks. So thank you everybody for joining us here today and being involved in all that's developed as Florida's medical marijuana system has continued to change through the years. My name's Eric Stevens. I'm with Florida for Care, sister organization United for Care, and Amendment 2. So we work to put Amendment 2 on the ballot twice. We did not pass the first time with the 60% the state requires. And so we had to put that back on, but now we have 71%. We made some changes earlier that Ron went over, and I think that those were for the better. And so in the end, we were left with a better amendment. So now it's on to implementation. So amendment becomes an implementing bill, becomes statute, and then it continually changes. It becomes interpreted and goes through different litigation processes, etc. So that's sort of where we're at, and how this has all moved forward. But the most important two parts of this program are the patients and the doctors, and how their involvement is in all of this. But within the implementing bills, there are a lot of different things that go on, and one of those things, that we were extremely happy about. I don't know if many of you know, but last year in 2017, in January of 2017, we had about 1,500 patients in the registry. In July, it was about 16,000. Now we're, over 117, I think was the last number. So, we've added about 100,000 patients since, the middle of last year. And, all those people are getting access and help that weren't before. And that's going to continue to grow in a state of almost 20 million people. But as that moves forward, we need to be looking at this and doing research and seeing what's working and seeing what can be most effective. And so hopefully some of you saw Sue Sisley's presentation earlier. I've spent a variety of time with her over the past few years and days. We were just over yesterday at the Moffitt Cancer Center with Dr. Kumar, who's going to come up here in a minute, and learning a little bit more about what they've been doing to try and get the state research program going. And how that's going to sort of play into all of this as it moves forward. So, without further ado, I'd like to briefly bring up. I'm not going to go through full bio, but if you could give a little bit of brief bio on yourself, I'd like to bring up Dr. Naji Kumar and have you tell us a little bit more about all the work you've been doing over at Moffitt and throughout the years.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nagi Kumar. I'm a clinical research scientist at the Moffitt Cancer Center and a professor in oncological sciences at the University of South Florida. I'm also the executive director of the Coalition for Research and Education on Medical Marijuana in the state of Florida. And in July 2017, there's established within the Moffitt Cancer Center, the Research Institute, the Coalition for Medical Marijuana Research and Education. This is a significant investment that the state of Florida made, very much like the state of New York, state of California, as well as Colorado, in as much as they wanted the medical marijuana program to be up and effective, simultaneously they also invested in research to really, at the end of the day, the gold standard is randomized clinical trials. And do we have them? Can we confidently prescribe medical marijuana to our patients at a specific dose for a specific indication without causing any harm and really improving either that symptom or the disease condition or their quality of life. So this was a very big investment that they made. I'm not talking about in dollars, but an ethical investment that the state of Florida made. I think you all know what the term medical marijuana is, so I'm not going to go through it in detail. But you have the plant cannabinoids, you have the artificially made cannabinoid medications that we've been using for a long time in cancer patient populations. Then you have these purified extracts, many of which we see next door to us. Then you have the endogenous cannabinoids or the endocannabinoids, which we heard about. And each one has a different role in medicine, and each one of them works interactively with each other, synergistically with each other, to produce the effects that we see. But the clincher here is that each one of us metabolize these cannabinoids very differently, and we have to recognize that. And that's where the research is very critical. And also objective research is critical. Cannabinoid-based synthetic drugs like dronabinol, as well as nabilone, has been used by cancer centers and other patient populations for a long time. These are synthetic cannabinoids, and in talking to every patient that I've met who's taking cannabis will tell me that the plant cannabinoids are so much better than the synthetic cannabinoids. Almost every patient I talk to say that. So I know the importance of evaluating plant cannabinoids for the same symptoms instead of giving them these artificial or synthetic cannabinoids. Currently, we have been only looking at THC and CBD, so all the research that exists out there, whether it is laboratory science work or mouse work or in early human trials, we have only seen everyone talk about THC and CBD and not about the terpenoids and other components which are bioactive in cannabis that we don't hear about. So we know that there are those other compounds that we need to look at also. And the current list of indications, that we have approved medical cannabis for or medical marijuana are very few. It ranges to 10 or 12. But if you look at other states like California or Washington State or New York, this list has many more indications than we have in the state of Florida. And one of our goals is to really study the effectiveness of use in other indications or in-kind indications so that we can tell our lawmakers to increase this list of indications. So that's another goal of ours. Most in-kind indications that we are seeing in the state of Florida registry that we have access to. We also have access to the Department of Medicine and the Department of Osteopathic Medicine in the Division of Quality Assurance. We get this data almost on a 3-month basis. We are seeing it being used for degenerative disc disease, generalized anxiety disorder, which is very similar to PTSD, persistent insomnia, devastating muscle spasms, non-malignant pain or opioid-dependent pain, or even in rheumatic arthritis, spinal cord injury producing muscle spasms and neuropathic pain, and in patients who have traumatic fractures producing neuropathic pain or muscle spasms. So you see a general trend here of muscle spasms, neuropathic pain is definitely an indication that patients are using it for. If you take for just cancer, for instance, I'm not even going to epilepsy or neuropathic pain or PTSD or other indications, but just taking cancer, which is what I research, and that is my area of work. We have no idea what the effects are when you use it concurrently with other cancer therapies. We know several cancer therapies that are standard cancer therapies. Take, for instance, breast stage 1, 2, and 3. The life expectancy is almost 100% now. If you're caught with an early stage cancer, patients live like you and I do. But we don't know what the effectiveness is when they use it concurrently with these known therapies that have proven effectiveness. We don't know the interaction with other drugs. You heard someone report a bleeding incident with all our chemotherapy patients should not be clotting their blood. They have a tendency to clot blood, and many of them are on Coumadin. So we don't know the interactions. We also don't want to increase symptoms or risk of other diseases, including cancer. And most importantly, we don't know the effectiveness. There are lack of clinical trials showing effectiveness in cancer. Can we treat cancer? Whether it's preventing cancer, treating cancer, or treating symptoms of cancer. We hear a lot of positive information. We have heard a lot the past few days, and we hear that from our patients themselves. But we need that gold standard of randomized clinical trials. We don't know the standardized doses. As we heard also, the doses differ from company to company or manufacturers to manufacturers, as well as around the country. The doses are very different. There are no standardized doses of marijuana other than smoked or vaporized, which cannot be dose metered, but now we are dose metering, so we know it, but we don't know the ratio that's best for a specific indication. We don't know the mechanism by which these substances are interacting with the disease, as well as the comorbidities that the patient has. Patients don't just have cancer. They come with diabetes or a heart disease or other disorders that are called comorbidities. It's very important when we medicate them that even during chemotherapy or radiation therapy, that we take all that into consideration. And now we have a new therapy called immunotherapy that is working very well, even in stage 4 lung cancer. So how does cannabis react to that? How does cannabis interact with that? These are big questions that we don't know. And other components present other than THC and CBD, as I said, how do these components interact? We don't even know about THC and CBD, but how about the others? And also about health professionals. I don't see the hundreds of 100,000 doctors who are licensed to practice in the state of Florida here at this meeting. We want to see them here at this meeting. If we can build the evidence, they will prescribe that medication. So it's important to remember that the research is what is going to bring the group of people here that you need to make a change in this business or in this world. Patients and families are tentative about it. I've never vaporized or smoked or done those kind of things in my lifetime. I am marijuana naive, but I'm very positive about what I'm hearing from my patients. So I'm very, just like I hear about any other symptom, and I want to look into this. And I want to look into this by giving it 100% of my effort. And I think that's what my colleagues in the Cancer Center feel. That's what my colleagues around the state of Florida feel. And the general population is, in general, naive about the THC content of some of the marijuana that we have. And I always say, it's not your dad's marijuana, it's not your grandpa's marijuana. This is different, because this is pharma grade, this is research grade marijuana. This is the way we have to make a drug to be used in medicine, right? So the other thing is federal law. Marijuana is still classified as Schedule 1. We've been working very closely as a research team with the DEA and with NIDA and FDA to see if this can change. FDA has not approved the use of marijuana as treatment for any medical condition. So to conduct clinical research, I don't have to say any more. You heard Dr. Cicely talk about her experience with the one drug supplier that we have to use as clinical trialists with the poor quality marijuana that we have to make. But I bring to you very good news. We have Congressman Getz from the state of Florida, who's now sponsored a bill, which I presented my testimonial last week in Washington, and it's a bipartisan supported bill where they want to increase the number of providers, drug providers for marijuana research. He has a minimum of 3 other producers of marijuana dispensaries that have to be added to the Ole Miss product. So he is very confident. I talked to him after we did the testimonials. He's confident that this bill will pass in August. So yes, they're already writing the bill, and it's almost complete. So follow that bill, support that bill, and we'll be right on our way doing the work. It's also a burden to the doctors. All these doctors have DEA licenses, we know that, right? So there's a stigma. They don't want to, write a prescription and then get caught and their license be revoked because they are writing a prescription now for marijuana. We as the Moffitt Cancer Center are federally funded, the only comprehensive cancer center in the state of Florida, and no medical oncologist wants to compromise their license to practice. So really we have to work at all levels and just not say we are a research and education and that's all we're going to do, because we have to change the laws here. We have to get a better product to research with. And we know people are making amazing products in our state, and why not use that in our research? And those are the cases you have to make, not just at the state level, but at the federal level, and not be afraid to do that. And we are doing that. Thank you. Thank you very much. But there are ways to do it, though. So you heard about Sativex, the drug solution that they use for retractable epilepsy, or epilepsy that cannot be treated with anything else. So we know that there is a way that Epidiolex, a CBD-based liquid drug to treat certain forms of childhood epilepsy, has not been approved, but it was unanimously voted by a panel of experts to be approved, because it went from phase 1 to phase 3, phase 2 to phase 3 clinical trials, and it showed efficacy. So it went through the regular route by which drugs are tested, and it was approved. So the same company has also made another drug, which is also going through a phase 3 clinical trial. So again, there are models out there. There are drugs that are out there that are being approved by FDA just to be tested in research studies. This is the only other IND, FDA, DA approved drug that was tested in the United States. It's been tested all over Europe. So there is a model. So there is a time-honored process, I call it, where any pharmaceutical that is to be used in medicine, to attain regulatory approval. And this is why we are the best country in the world, where we have the best treatment options for almost every disease that's out there. And we all have access, or at least there is an effort to make all of us have access to the best drugs available and the best treatments available. It's because we have this time-honored system. We have to screen and understand the components. What are the biological targets of marijuana components? We need to know it's chemically uniform, it's stable, it is safe, it doesn't interact with your other drugs, and it's effective for specific indications, as proven in randomized clinical trials. This is how I went to school, and I went to school here. And this is what we learned in the drug development process. So we know that we have to get research-grade marijuana, and we are working on it. As I said, we are working on it. It's available all around us. We just have to, the more the federal government approves it, the better these guys are going to be at how they produce research-grade marijuana. So there is really a promising future in this field. The composition, whether it's biochemically variable, the delivery systems, we have awesome delivery systems, any which way you can get it to improve bioavailability. Suppositories for patients who have nausea and vomiting, who cannot take oral drugs. So these options are now available. The adverse events are still there. You still have youngsters smoking. There is data on smoking marijuana in children that can increase their risk of a specific type of testicular cancer, as well as some oral cancers. So these are all still in their infancy, but you have to proceed with caution whenever you're treating children. So many of the children who get medical marijuana, it's important that they get in a form that is safe, and to think of their long years ahead of them, that they don't get something else. So I've said this already, it has to be standard, it has to be consistent, it has to be good quality, possess a practical and suitable delivery system that minimizes patient risk, intoxication, drug abuse liability, that's always there, serious adverse events such as pulmonary consequences, and a supply chain that ensures security, that it's being distributed to its intended target patients. Proof that it's safe and effective, that it's an effective pharmaceutical, then physicians will prescribe with confidence, pharmacists will endorse and supply, like you see in Canada, and the government health services and third-party payers will cover. And this is the greatest example that we know of. Probably by the end of the month, you're going to have a first medical marijuana extract, approved by the FDA. I'm predicting that. And this is for epilepsy, intractable epilepsy. So what are we going to do as a coalition for medical marijuana research and education? Our goal is to conduct rigorous scientific research, provide public and professional education, disseminate the research that we are conducting in real time, and guide policy for adoption of statewide and nationwide policy on ordering, dosing, and for the medical use of marijuana. This is our goal. And we have a group of board that we assembled. It was actually a board that was appointed by Dr. Alan List, who's the CEO of the Cancer Center, Dr. Sellers, and you can see it's well represented by disciplines that are interested in medical marijuana and the universities around the state of Florida. For education research goals, we want to identify and prioritize the research to be conducted. This board actually does that, and to develop a comprehensive evidence-based on the short and long-term health effects of marijuana, both beneficial and harmful effects. So our goal is, this year, as we've established the infrastructure and started work on the research, our goal is also to focus on efficacy studies. While we are looking at efficacy studies, we want to know what are the safety issues that are concomitantly occurring while the drug is effective, and how can we mitigate those side effects. So this is something that's typically done in any randomized clinical trial, and that's the model we're going to be using. But we are focusing on efficacy and understanding cannabis as it relates to not only cancer, but other diseases. We've already funded a couple of research studies in the first year that we got the money. I would say a significant part of the funding that we received went to funding research. We are looking at establishing a research program on medical marijuana and tobacco co-use. Like, is there an interaction? Are they using less tobacco because they're using marijuana? And what are the symptoms that are reduced or increased or concomitantly occurring in less significantly? We don't know, but we're looking at that. We're also looking at medical cannabis use among glioma patients. These are the patients with brain tumor adults in the state of Florida. These are the projects, the innovative projects that came in for funding for the current year. And if you see, there are all kinds of projects. Some of them are looking at cardiovascular effects with marijuana. Is it safe in cardiovascular disease, especially in AIDS patients? But there are also other interesting work, as you can see. There's one drug discovery project at the Cancer Center by Tumor Biology and Drug Discovery, where they're looking at how we can modulate lung cancer, small cell lung cancer, with components of cannabis. So I think very interesting work, both basic science as well as clinical trials. The other angle of our research is going to focus on, is already focusing on the data from the registry, because we already have patients who are using it for 10 or 12 indications, as well as the other in-kind indications I was talking about. So we want to see how effective it is for them. So we have direct access to the registry, the Moffitt Cancer Center does, and I do as the executive director of the coalition. So we're looking at how much are they getting, is it effective, do they have adverse events relating to that? So if they have adverse events, are the dose reduced, is the dose changed, and are they reducing opioid use because of this? This data is collected by the state registry and is available to us, so we are looking at that. We're also looking at all the other in-kind information that we have, where in-kind indications that the marijuana is being used for. Is it effective? Is it safe in that population, so that we can recommend to our lawmakers in the coming year to change the number of indications that we can use marijuana for. So this is a very important initiative that we've taken over. So This is our this is the work we've been doing. We've been evaluating response to treatment, what are the most common qualifying conditions that's being prescribed, what's the route they are using, what's the dose and what's the duration of administration, what is the best route, that's what we want to know, safety of medical marijuana, as well as evaluating dose reduction of opioids. We also want to partner with the industry. Today I met a lot of very interesting teams here. We want a statewide availability of pharma-grade or research-grade marijuana. And we want it to be amenable to variation in the components. So if we see that a certain dose is a little too much, we want to know if the companies that we are seeking this research-grade marijuana can change it for us, can formulate it for us, just like drug companies would. Provide a practical and suitable delivery system that minimizes risk to the patient, has the capacity to be dose metered, everything that we want as researchers. And so we can continue our work, but we want to partner with industry to do this. The education goals, what we've done is we haven't created our own education material because we know that the state of Florida has its own. The physicians group in the state of Florida have their own education materials. And I work on the education material that's published by the National Cancer Institute on cannabis and cancer. So we just assemble credible information from NIDA, from DEA, from National Cancer Institute, the National Institute of Health, as well as the local information. As they get published, we post it on our website. But what we want to plan for is plan to conduct an annual interactive workshop on how to improve quality of research using medical marijuana. If you look at any questionnaire now of medical marijuana that researchers use, it's right under heroin use and cocaine use, and it shouldn't be. And so we know, those are the standardized questionnaires. Those are the validated questionnaires. Well, I'm not using them because I don't think a patient is going to, check X on the others and then marijuana, and then they're going to think, can I actually say this to my doctor? So we need to improve the quality of our research. The instruments we use, the equipment we use, this, how much are we going to compromise here? How much we're not going to compromise? These are things we want to come together. We want to pull in DEA and let them know our problems. They've been hearing from me all the time, formal papers, informal papers that I've been writing them saying the research-grade marijuana really is not acceptable. So that is really a barrier for us to proceed with phase 1, phase 2 trials. So we want them to be at the table, engaged with us, along with National Institute of Drug Abuse, as well as National Cancer Institute, National Institute of Pediatric and Children's Research. The whole group come together, along with the researchers in the state of Florida. And we also are working, as I said, on the regulatory issues with the DEA. We've written 2 position papers saying that the quality of and grade of marijuana that we get for research is not acceptable for research. They know that, they've acknowledged that, and they are working diligently with Congressman Getz to change that rule. And again, the same thing we do for public education. We take material from these national institutes of health and place it there, and we also publish a lot of information that comes out of NIDA in our site. Again, this is not our research infrastructure was our primary goal. The education was we didn't want to confuse the patient population. We really wanted to make a change in the Department of Medicine and the Department of Osteopathic Medicine in the data they're collecting right now, because they're not collecting very good data on efficacy. If they did, we'll be in business. We'll be publishing that, but they're not. So I visit them a lot also. We also have made contacts with the growers at our dispensaries, and they are collecting very good data themselves. We want to collaborate with them. There are a lot of data management software, as you saw. data collection software. We'll be working with them also. So we're not limited to getting our resources from the state of Florida. We'll get the best there is around the country and use them. And that's the model we use at the Moffitt Cancer Center, so why not? Last but not least, I wanted all of us who are, we're all a positive group here, but I showed this slide to all my other colleagues who are naysayers. Patients are not seeking altered states from their medicine, but rather than relief of pain or other ailments. If we can think about that, I think we're all doing a good job of moving along in this field of research and education. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We'll do a Q&A here at the end, but I hope that was helpful for you guys to hear. Some of the stuff isn't as publicized, and so we want to try and get the word out there more so.
None of this is publicized.
Right, yeah.
And Dr. Kumar, thank you so much. I don't think any of us here knew what you were doing up there, quite frankly. And for me to hear your positivity, I know I'm going to leave this feeling a whole lot better about what's going on in Moffitt. And just to hear that.
I agree. I was at the meeting yesterday. It seems like they're moving in the right direction, but I know they've had a variety of those meetings, and they are seemingly moving forward in all this. So we need to, continue to have these conversations, and that's why we have these good meetings. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up next a friend I've known for quite a few years now, as we work through Amendment 2 from start to finish here. But Dr. Joseph Rosado. Please come up here and tell us more about medical cannabis uses here in Florida. Tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got involved, and thank you for joining us.
All right. Am I on? Can you hear me? Excellent. All right. As a physician, and those of you that have heard me speak in the past, I always start with a what? A what? A question or a quiz. Yes, story. Who said that? Yes? So, my question for you guys tonight, it's not tonight yet, but what do the following conditions have in common? I am from the school of Sesame Street. I grew up with Sesame Street, so which of these is not like the others, right? So, which of these, or how are these connected or related? Migraine headaches, general anxiety disorder with panic attacks, major depressive disorder, attention deficit disorder, fibromyalgia, lower extremity swelling, constipation, hot flashes, and opiate detox. What do those have in common? Yes, sir.
All treatable with cannabis.
Good answer. Yes, sir, in the back.
Suffering.
Suffering. Yes, sir. Inflammation.
The brain.
Magnesium.
Magnesium. Yes.
The brain.
The brain. Okay. Keep.
None of them fit the state's qualifying medical conditions.
PTSD, but that's the answer. Every one of those conditions are not part of the approved qualifying conditions in the state of Florida. But stay tuned, because more is coming. So, for those of you that don't know me, shame on you. I am a primary care physician in the state of Florida. I am an advocate, as Eric said, of the medical cannabis program in the state of Florida. I was involved in both campaigns, 2014, 2016, for the passing of Amendment 2, which we don't have yet. I have completed the course, the 8-hour course, the 8-hour course mandated by the state of Florida originally back in 2015. Then I retook the 8-hour course in a 2-hour course that was mandated this last October. And I also took the medical director course, which was mandated to be taken back in 2015 because at that time I was invited to be one of the medical directors for one of the license holders, which I am not, which allows me to recommend in the state of Florida. And I have recommended low THC and medical cannabis to over 800 patients, but this was written 2 weeks ago, so I'm now over 1,000, but not as high as my buddy. So, now, Since we mentioned a lot about Canada, let's compare the state of Florida with the country of Canada. What are the qualifying conditions for each one of the regions? And since, when Florida grows up, it may be Canada. The one point here that I want to address, which is the most important, is the last line right here in Canada's law. Other symptoms or conditions authorized by your governor, your senator, your representative. What does it say there? Again, louder. Healthcare practitioner, not your government, not your governor, not your president. We, the physicians, are the ones that are to decide who the hell gets this medication. Thank you. So, about a year and 3 months ago, I did a talk called Let's Play Doctor. Today it's Let's Play Doctor 2.0, okay? But quick show of hands, how many physicians, how many colleagues in the room with me? Outstanding. This is gonna be fun. All right, so, patient is a 45-year-old Caucasian female who is 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighs 180 pounds, her body mass index is 27.37. She presented on December 15, 2015 for her initial visit to be evaluated for medical cannabis treatment. Her chief complaints are migraine headaches, seizures, PTSD, general anxiety disorder with panic attacks, major depressive disorder, moderate and recurrent, attention deficit disorder, fibromyalgia, hypothyroidism, lower extremity swelling, hot flashes. She's a cigarette smoker, a pack per day, and is overweight. Remember what I mentioned at the beginning of the talk? These are all of her conditions. Of all of these conditions, which one, according to the state of Florida, can I recommend for? And seizures. So all of those, I can manage with cannabis. True or false? False. Kick her out. All right, these are the medications that she has tried and failed at, okay? So she's done Lortab Norco, she's done the morphine, extended release and immediate release. She's done the fentanyl patches, she's done the hydromorphone, she's done the oxymorphone, she's done methadone, she's done the new and improved tapentadol. She's done all of the triptans. Why? Because she was allergic to them. And so if one didn't work, well, let's try a different one. Yes. She's had Botox done. She's even had a neurostimulator implanted in her body in 2011, 7 years ago. And, well, she must be nuts, so let's give her some Cymbalta. And then they gave her muscle relaxer and gabapentin. Tried all of these, nothing worked. So when she came to see me on December 15th, these were the medications that she was on. So, she's on the oxycodone immediate release, on the Oxycontin extended release, 30 milligrams. Notice the numbers. Topamax, Flexeril, Zofran, because of course the migraine headaches give her nausea and vomiting. And of course these opiates give her constipation, or as they say on Sunday night while we're watching 60 Minutes or NFL, for opiate-induced constipation. Oh, I see. They've given it a name, and there's the drug, Linzess. Okay. Levothyroxine for her hypothyroidism, Focalin extended release, not just one, but two, for her ADD and her ADHD, for her depression and anxiety, Lamictal, Klonopin, and Abilify for the swelling in her legs, and of course for her hot flashes, she's getting Premphase, which is a hormone replacement, synthetic hormone replacement, and Paxil. What happens to women that take Paxil, or men for that matter? What happens? Weight gain, but something more important?
No sex drive.
No sex drive, much more important than weight gain in my book. So, let's give her all of this.
How many off-label uses do you think are in there?
Exactly.
Yes, thank you.
That's what I like to speak to. I
I mean, look at how many off-label uses have to be going on with the side effects of those drugs. With the side effects of cannabis being what they are. Sorry, Joe.
No problem. So, looking at this slide, how many pills does MEB take per day? Numbers, let's go. 20, 25.
8.
How many?
8.
8?
40.
Who said 40? 40? 44?
60.
She takes between 42 and 58 pills a day. Okay? She's 45 years old. Can you imagine? Excellent question. Can she afford it? Because remember, she's taking the Zofran 2 tablets every 2 to 4 hours as needed. So that's why the range, anywhere between 42 and 58 pills a day. Now imagine how this woman is living. Imagine how her family's living. What kind of a mom is she? What kind of a wife is she? What kind of a daughter is she? How can she be any of those things when she's on all of this? And having to remember every 4 to 6 hours that she's got to take them. I'll entertain questions at the end. Sorry. Otherwise, Eric will fire me. All right, so remember the date. December, when? 15. February 12th, what happens? She gets her card. Why did it take 2 freaking months for her to get her card, to get her medication? 2 months to get her card to be able to get recommended. Okay? So these were my recommendations. I started her on the oral tincture as well as the concentrated oil for vaping. Why? Because she was one of the doobies that Barry talks about. She has some experience smoking, but never had ingested anything orally. For that reason, I combined the two. I also combined the two because, as was mentioned yesterday and today, the bioavailability and the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics of medications. When you inhale, the absorption is within 10 to 20 minutes. When you take things orally, it's anywhere between 1.5 hours to 2 hours. So by doing them simultaneously, they get the relatively immediate effect of the vaping, and then when the vape is wearing off, the oral is kicking in, and now they're covered better. So she uses, or she would use, the vaping for breakthrough, which is what she's accustomed to with the Percocets, and uses the oils throughout. I also divided it into 3 equal doses of sativa, hybrid, and indica. Sativa in the morning, because of her experience with cannabis, she told me that sativa picked her up, the indica dropped her down, and so I set her up exactly this way. Following the mantra that we all have heard on more than one occasion, start low, go slow. Started her at a low dose, and every 5 days increased with, as was mentioned earlier, cannabis holidays. And that doesn't mean going to Colorado and spending the weekend. It's taking a 24-hour break for every 6 or 7 days that you're on, okay? And she followed up in a month. So 1 month later, well, this is what she reports. She's off of the Percocet. She started using the vaping for breakthrough, which was the goal. She's no longer on the Zofran for her nausea. The tremors and seizures have disappeared. The lowered stress